Welcome back to Drop Everything, the juggling podcast brought to you by the International Juggling Association. We're going to be doing part 2 of David Cain's podcast, The Noted Juggler and Juggling Historian. Thanks to our sponsor, Todd Smith, and engineer Karen Holzman. Now let's get ready to talk more with David Cain.
So let's talk a little bit about this niche you found yourself in, because whenever I teach anybody, I do some coaching, I often use you as an example of someone who found not only a type of juggling to do, but a type of juggling they wanted to do for an audience they wanted to do it for. So now, obviously, you're the head of the Christian Juggling Association.
Used to be.
Is that still something that's going on? Or?
Yeah, the association's still going on. Different leadership. There have been probably 5 or 6 different presidents over the years.
But if someone is interested, they still can join the Christian Juggling Association?
Yep. There's a website for it, and there's a Facebook group for it, and there's still a convention every year, a festival every year that they have. So yeah, it was a way of combining my Christian faith with my juggling, and I love it. The audiences are great. It's very low stress. I always give them more than they're expecting. I get to do comedy. I get to do technical stuff. I get to share a message that I believe in. It's just it's the ideal niche for me. And like you said, if a juggler can find a niche that first of all will provide them for opportunities to perform, and also be something that they have interest in and things of that sort, that's a really ideal situation.
I always say search for the lifestyle you want. I mean, because a lot of juggling jobs require a tremendous deal of travel. Like the people who are working cruise ships or working long-term engagements in, let's say, variety shows or overseas in Europe. And that could really be difficult on relationships and on having a family life. So to find a niche like this, and then so you said you sort of thought about this idea. Was this how this idea arise and develop to perform in churches? Had you ever seen anybody else doing a sort of entertaining program in the churches?
Yeah, and there were some magicians and others that did it. But there were no jugglers that I was aware of, and so I said, this is something that I definitely could do. It was funny at the time. Well, previous to developing the juggling ministry, I was pursuing a sideline as a Christian songwriter, and more so as a songwriter and a bit as a performer, singer and songwriter. And I had a little bit of success with that. I had some people cover or record some of my songs, and I did some concerts from time to time, but I realized through some wisdom of some other people that talked to me that there are lots and lots of people pursuing Christian music, but here I was a fairly high caliber juggler, and there were that was a unique thing I could pursue. And once that light bulb went on in my mind, I'm like, you're right, I can take the creativity that I was using for the songwriting and apply that to my juggling, and that's what I did. And I had a couple really big opportunities right at the beginning of my career or my juggling ministry that really, really helped immensely. I had a huge front cover newspaper article about my ministry on the front of the Cincinnati Enquirer, which is the biggest newspaper in Cincinnati, Ohio, which is the area I live in. And I also got to perform at a giant event, Christian music festival in Kentucky, where there were 3,000 churches represented. And so both those things together really skyrocketed the ministry to a very quick start.
Well, those are the best kind of shows, when you can perform
in
in front of potential clients and they can actually see exactly what you do and get paid. That's fantastic. So we've pretty much caught up on your history. So that's what you're kind of doing today. Is still doing.
Yeah.
How many is it tapered off? Is it still about the same amount, or?
Oh, well, I don't do 235 bookings anymore, but I make a lot more per booking, and I travel more, and I'm a single dad of 2 kids. I couldn't imagine doing that many gigs and still be a responsible dad at the same time. So I do probably about 100 to 120 bookings a year. And I travel all across the U.S. and I go to Asia sometimes and then Europe. But mainly it's here in the U.S., all across the U.S. And I've got, some months I know I'm going to be busier. March, June, and July and August are my 4 busiest months. Other months are really slow, and so I can kind of plan my year and my life around the schedule that I know I'm going to have. My kids juggle, so that's fun to do that with them.
And we talked about these multiple income streams that you could do at the church. Do you mind elaborating a little bit about that? Because I think it's a very smart business model. You said there's like 4 different sort of sources of income at these types of jobs.
Well,
there's the payment initially.
Yeah, there's initial payment. There's selling things afterwards. There's the fact that at churches, unlike just about anything else, people will give you extra money. I mean, sometimes, if I get booked to do a church for $500 or whatever it is, $500 or $700 or whatever, I'll often do the gig, and afterwards they'll say, here's an extra $200 or whatever. You don't get that with anything else.
You don't. Very rarely at a corporate gig do they, even though one time we did get a $5,000 tip, I must say, for a 4-day Eckerd drug store where we emceed for 4 days, and I think it's probably the only time we ever got a tip. At least it was quite chunky.
Right. And then also you just have individuals, audience members, come up afterwards and give you things. I have people shake my hand and they palm me $100 bill.
Nice.
Yeah. So, and then I sell things after the shows as well. So, it's, but then again, so I make a decent living doing what I do, and I love doing what it is, what I do. But I've also put in the work. I put in 32 years of practice. And, I think of what I do in terms of 3 different areas. It's the technical juggling, it's the entertainment value, the comedy and everything, audience participation and everything along those lines, and then the message. And so I want all 3 to be the highest quality that I can provide. I want it to be a truly world-class or completely professional presentation on all 3 of those levels.
Well, it's a great philosophy for success. We've caught up on your history. Let's talk a little bit about the history of juggling, perhaps, or let's talk about how you started your collection. That's something quite recently, maybe 2 or 3 years ago you started that?
Almost 2 years ago. June 1st will be 2 years. Well, I've always had a great love of juggling history and trivia. I've won some juggling trivia competitions at the IJA Fest in the past, and always had just a real love for knowing all the history. And so, and I've done some writing in the past for a Juggle magazine about juggling history and things of that sort. But 2 years ago, I got a call from Alan Howard saying that someone had some Van Wyck juggling clubs for sale. And Van Wyck was the first retail juggling prop manufacturer, and he was the first person to have retail juggling clubs for sale. And he lived and worked right in Cincinnati, where I live.
What year are we talking about, Van Wyck? Is that maybe 30s or 40s, or?
Nope, 1890s.
1890s. And he was the first person to
started
commercially produce juggling gloves. 1890s.
Yes.
Wow.
1895 he started, and for about 20 to 30 years he was, well, until 1919 he was the only retail maker of juggling equipment.
And these, of course, are wooden. They're hollow wooden type of.
They're wooden, hollow. I could get one and show it to you.
Well, is there a place where people could go and go to your website and see pictures of the stuff we talk about?
You can see everything. It's www.historicaljugglingprops.com. So it started with just these 3 Van Wyck clubs. And I had recently gone through a divorce that I wasn't happy about going through. And so I said, this will be my my therapy to myself. I'm going to start collecting historical juggling props, and I cannot believe what I've been able to get a hold of.
How many props do you have in over 2 years? How many of you have you amassed?
Oh, hundreds, but it's not just the props; it's whose props I've got. I mean, behind me here, I've got 2 rooms. I have a dining room and a living room that have been turned into a museum. I've got props from Francis Brunn, Lottie Brunn, Anthony Gatto, Ernest Montego, Massimiliano Truzzi, Rudy Cardenas, Bobby May.
Okay, if your house was on fire, what would be the one prop that you would grab?
I don't know.
Really grab one.
I don't know.
What would it be that you'd rush out with?
Well, maybe the most unique prop I have is I have a ring from Alexander Kiss, the great Russian juggler, who is kind of the father of Russian juggling.
He was a teacher of Ignatov, him and his wife, correct? Violetta?
His sister. Violetta Kiss. His sister.
It's a sister. All right.
Ignatov's teacher. I've got insane stuff. I've got Bob Ramson's hoops. I've got Howard Nichols' hoop. I've got just insane things here. I've got a machete that was passed around Johnny Carson by
the Rasputin brothers. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here, David. We sometimes have these kind of conversations. All right, jugglers, top 5. This is, of course, your take. It's not necessarily that you think this is for everybody. Who are your desert island jugglers that you like to watch, that you really stand out for you style-wise? Who are your top 5 guys?
Okay, as far as my favorite, I'm not necessarily saying because
it's hard to say when people talk about the greatest juggler, because to me there are 3 types of jugglers basically. You have your technical jugglers, who might be like your Anthony Gattos, maybe not like your Albert Lucases, who are pretty much straightforward technical demonstrations of skill. You have your artistic guys, who are like your Victor Keys, your Vladics, who mix in a lot of dancing, a lot more even storyline. Sure. Then you have your comedy jugglers, who are your talkers. So each person might have their own preference for what type of juggler they like. Right. So over that broad range, we can only pick 5. So who would be your guys?
Right. Well, the way I look at it is I look at the act as a whole. Ernest Montego, I just love the variety of things he did. And see, over his career, he really he kept changing his act and improving it, and
he did the run
I love the
on the unicycle.
On the unicycle.
Crazy. Can you spell his name for people who might want to look him up on the internet? Does he have any videos on YouTube?
Yeah, and you can see. I've got a bunch of his props here, so you can find the page on my website.
And also, he turned out, this is an interesting story, to be Francis Brunn's half brother, and he didn't know that.
Yes, but he didn't know that. He was already performing when he learned that his actual father was the father of Francis and Lottie Brunn. So really interesting story. There's a wonderful, wonderful documentary about his life that I wish more jugglers had seen. It's only a few have seen it, but it's really an amazing documentary.
All right, so who makes your list? He's like, we don't have to say he's number 5. He's one of the 5. You got 4 more to go, because we won't put you down as if who's your favorite of the 5, just overall. So who's your number 4?
Oh, Bob Bramson.
Good choice, Bob Bramson. Had a very long career. Probably one of the longest. I mean, he started as a child with his parents. And then when he retired, I think at an IJ convention, I think in Rapid City.
Yeah, but he actually came out of retirement after that and performed a little bit more and then re-retired.
So he performed, but into his maybe 60s or something, or?
Late 60s. Mid to late 60s, and started very, very early. And just an amazing career, amazing act. I mean, he and Howard Nichols are undoubtedly the 2 best hoop rolling jugglers ever.
That's certainly a art form or a type of juggling you don't see much is hoop rolling.
It's starting to come back. I see.
You see a little bit with the hula hoopers have sort of picked up some of the moves. And there's a great Russian artist. I'm sure you think you know who I'm talking about. A woman who does a hula hoop.
Yes, really.
Do you know her name? Because I don't think I know it offhand.
I don't know her name.
I think she's one of the juggling art. The art. There's the
raw
arts,
is that it?
Which I believe is Victor Key's artistic agency.
Yeah, I think so.
But if someone looked up raw art,
if you see raw arts hoop rolling, you'll find
fantastic act. All right, so we have Ernest Montego, we have Bromson,
Bob Bramson, and I'll tell you, both of those gentlemen have become friends of mine in the last couple of years, and that's one thing that's been really neat for me is to go from being a kid who idolized you and idolized all these people who are now friends of mine, and that's really, really
well. I have to say my biggest thrill is Chris Cremo. To have seen him, because he was the first juggler I saw when I was 14. To actually sort of consider him a friend, and I think that's one thing about juggling is you could maybe Slash the guitarist and become a guitarist. Your chances of hanging out with Slash are still pretty slim.
Very
but
true.
In juggling, I think there's such a camaraderie among the top professionals to the amateurs. Is that bond of juggling is so strong.
Yeah.
All right, so we got 3 more to go.
Oh man, if you'd said top 7, that'd be a lot easier than top 5.
Maybe you can sneak in those other 2 at the end, and we'll probably wrap up after this. But this is going to be our shout out to these jugglers who have inspired us.
All right. Evgeny Belauer, the great Russian juggler. He's one of my favorites. A lot of people, when they see Belauer, they're like, that's all the stuff that Gatto does. And he really, I think he probably had a great influence on Anthony Gatto.
I remember the one trick he did. He did the 5 clubs 3 up front roll, if I'm not mistaken.
in his act, yes.
In his act. We're talking, night after night in the top Russian circuses. Yep. Was he also a student of Alexander and Victoria Kiss, or?
No, he was not. I think I may be wrong, but I think he studied under Bauman, which was another very well-known Russian juggling teacher. But I'm actually getting a box of his props and the costume and some other things next week.
Is he still alive? So I'm not really quite sure. He was from the 50s and 60s, if I'm not mistaken.
And 70s a bit as well. He was actually a contemporary of Ignatov, but I think he came a little bit before Ignatov. But there was a lot of overlap in their careers, and they kind of always competed to be the top Russian juggler, Soviet juggler. He's still alive. He he lives in Moscow, and at least until fairly recently, he did some circus directing and things of that sort. I'm not sure if he's really retired right now or not, but I think he is. But,
well, he's got to be in his 70s or something.
Yeah, early 70s, I would guess.
Not that maybe Dieter Tasso, you think, is the oldest living performing juggler? He's got to be.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And he's still at quite a high level. I mean, he's a comedy juggler, but he's working good places and making good money. And
yeah, he's 80 or 81 years old, I think. And he performs at the Wisconsin Dells every summer, all summer long, a couple shows a day.
It's got to be a fairly hard gig. That's like out on the water. It's outside. Good act. Once again, Dieter Tasso. That's Tasso. Another fellow you can look up on YouTube. And
you can find him on my website as well.
Something very smart where he started as a center ring juggler, technical juggler, did the cups and saucers on the slack rope. And as he got older, he developed more of a comedy act. It extended his career many, many years, and he's still working.
Great example of changing with your age and keeping relevant. He did one of the most amazing tricks ever, which is, he was known for doing the cup, kicking the cups and saucers up to his head on the slack wire. But in '53, I believe, when he was with Ringling, he did it for that season on a unicycle on the slack wire.
There you go. So, a la Rudy Horn, but taking it up on the slack wire.
On slack wire. So that's pretty amazing.
We got two more. Just two more.
Alexander. Well, I'll give you three.
All right, okay. We'll give you the top 6. We won't give you the top 7 though. Right. So you got 3 more. You got to only do it in 3 though.
All right. Alexander Kiss, the great Russian juggler from the 50s and 60s, because he was the first person to do 5 club back crosses, and then just about everything else in his act has never been duplicated.
I like the 8 rings on the rolla bola with the head balance.
With head
the
balance.
Bouncing club on his forehead.
Yes.
He was a great inventor. I mean, he certainly was a guy you could look at and go,
oh, absolutely.
He created a lot of stuff we still see today.
Right. And his 6-ring routine with the 2-segmented pole and the ball, that is an amazing routine.
So Alexander Kiss, another for us, of course, we can look up and watch on YouTube. There's some black and whites of videos of him I've seen.
Yeah, and there's a new color one. There's a new color, really crisp version of his act that's now available on YouTube. And you can find that on my website as well, because I do have
give your website name again so people can find you.
historicaljugglingprops.com.
Okay, cool. And you have links to all these different videos and.
Yeah, they're all on there.
So for you listeners interested in the history of juggling and being inspired by these great jugglers, that's your resource right there. All right, you got 2 more, correct? 2 more to go.
Yep.
So let's recap. We had Montego, we had Ignatov, we had Bromson, we had Kiss, and Bellauer.
Not Ignatov, Bellauer.
So you got 2 more to go.
So, yeah.
Now, I see you're not really mentioning too many contemporary jugglers, but these all seem to be fairly jugglers from the past.
Yeah.
Do you want to
give
any well, I won't influence your final 2. I'll let you just go for
it. Okay. Because I do love the past jugglers. You know, I love current jugglers, but there's something about the old historical jugglers that just has a special place for me.
All right, your final 2.
All right.
David Cain's final 2 top jugglers.
Oh gosh. 2. I've got 3 in my mind. That's
all right. Let's hear the first 2, then maybe sneak that last one in before we say goodbye.
All right. Alberto Sforzi, the Italian
that's
juggler.
a name that not many people probably have heard of, is Sforzi.
Right. Amazing juggler. He's about 72, 73 years old, retired, living in Italy. He performed in the same Italian circus his entire career, and so he didn't get around the world a lot, so people don't know him as well. But here's a guy who devoted his entire life to juggling. He would take the best tricks of all the jugglers in the entire world, learned their very best tricks, and filled his act with those tricks. He did like a 35-minute center. He was in the ring for like 35 minutes doing his act.
And we're talking a guy, not talking guy. Here's a guy who just basically is demonstrating And he was also a slack rope artist as well, as I remember. And
yes.
Great versatility for this fella.
Oh, yeah.
Monster juggler,
very
like
much.
Paul Bach would say. He's a monster.
Yes. He did 10 rings on a slack wire while spinning a ring on his ankle. He did the most of the brun finish on a unicycle. He jumped rope while juggling 6 rings with a ball on a head pedestal.
Must have been quite a heavy pedestal, I imagine.
I imagine that as well.
Because I know Rastelli did that same trick with the ball bouncing, the jumping rope.
Well, no.
No?
Rastelli didn't do it with the ball. He either did 6 plates with ball bouncing, or he did 6 plates with a ring on his ankle and jumping rope, but not with the ball bouncing.
With a pedestal. That's pretty amazing. Jumping rope.
Yeah, but he wasn't the first. Swarzy wasn't the first one to do it with the pedestal while jumping rope. That was Pisanelli, who is still alive, another Italian juggler, I believe, who's like in his 90s. This guy met Rastelli, and he's still alive, amazing. And so that's pretty cool. But Swarzy, you have to see a video of his stuff to see the huge number of things.
So maybe the IJ could invite him out sometime as our historical.
Well, they did. He won the award last year, historical achievement last year, but he wasn't able to.
Oh, that's too bad.
So
did they show a video? Did they at least?
No, but I did at the festival. I did make a presentation of plaque, and it's actually been sent to him twice and been returned. So we're still trying to.
And do you have any of his props?
I'm getting some, but I don't have them yet. But I highly recommend looking up Alberto Swarzy, Sforzi. And then
last one, and maybe you could sneak that other one as an aside. Okay. And then we'll plug your History Lounge, because people then can see you at the skiers convention.
Yep. Massimiliano Truzzi.
Okay, last one is your Massimiliano Truzzi. Okay.
Yeah. Just another guy who had, a 35-minute circus act, which is, unheard of today. He just did so many amazing things. The combination tricks he did, this is a guy who had a mouse stick and balanced a glass fishbowl on it, had another fishbowl on his foot, and would switch them.
Okay, right.
And that's an amazing trick.
I remember he worked with the great clown Emmett Kelly. I love that story where he would throw the ball out and to be thrown back to be caught on the mouse stick, and he would intentionally knock over Emmett Kelly, who had a big box of popcorn or something like that. So he had some shtick in there as well, an entertainer.
Yes, he did. He's a very, very funny gentleman. He's a Renaissance man. He was a master chess player and spoke a number of languages and did all types of things. But his stage presence was so huge. He was a big, tall man, and his style was great. But also just the tricks he did were amazing. He did 6 plates while bouncing a ball on his head. He did these 5 giant clubs, and then did a cascade, then did a little brief shower with them. He did just all types. He did the 3-ball stack, not spinning.
Right, a balance.
But then he did 4. Yeah, they did 4 balls. They even did 4 balls on his foot, balance. He did all these amazing things that you don't see nowadays. The one thing that I don't like about more modern jugglers is that everybody seems to do the same stuff.
You mean prop-wise or trick-wise or?
Both. All the props look exactly alike, and all the upcoming, it's not all, but so many of the upcoming jugglers, they look what everyone else is doing, and they want to do exactly what everyone else is doing. And that is not a way to set yourself apart in the world of juggling.
Words of wisdom, David Cain. Words of wisdom.
I know.
All right, give a shout out to the last one, real quick.
Rastelli.
Enrico Rastelli.
Who I'm still. I've got from everyone I've mentioned so far. I've got props from them, or I have props from them coming. Rastelli, I don't. I really, really wish I had a Rastelli prop, but they're few and far between.
I always say that the death of Rastelli was probably one of the biggest blows to juggling ever, because he probably could have established the juggler as a star, as his own touring, like a Houdini. And his death, I believe, at age 35, sort of cut short what could have been sort of our Houdini.
I absolutely agree.
And well, okay, let's talk about your history lounge. Just mention the name of the last guy. Just
sure.
You had one more you wanted to say,
that?
Or was Rastelli the?
Rastelli was the last. Yep, Rastelli.
Okay. Who was your favorite current juggler? Which is one. If you had to pick one name of a guy you see nowadays who you sort of epitomizes what you like about juggling, just give some props to some young up and comer or some guy who's still working.
Man, that is hard to say. I like a lot of different people, and I think there are some amazing jugglers that not enough people know.
Well, I'll give a shout out to Kyle Driggs. I thought.
Great.
Yeah,
juggler.
I mean, because for me, he kind of has that full package of the technique, the style. I was surprised, because we had talked about the competitions where he came in first, and you were one of the preliminary judges. And he competed against Wes Peden, who's a fantastic juggler, very strong juggler.
Sure.
And when Kyle Driggs came out on top, I was very impressed. And then when I watched his routine, I thought, oh, okay, this is a really professional juggling act.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of that came down to the performances that night.
Of course, like it always does.
Because in prelims, Wes had his prelim act was perfect. And if he had done that perfect act, he probably would have won, just because the technical level is
yes,
so
be considered
high.
Probably one of the highest technical levels
absolutely.
now. I mean, his juggling is amazing.
I mean, so many of the people coming out of Jay Gilligan's training.
Sure. The Tony Pezzos,
they have that
Patrick Elmer,
Tony Pezzo, Patrick Eller, all those folks. Amazing technical level, amazing creativity. I mean, so yeah, you have to certainly do a shout out to all those guys. If you just want pure technical old school stuff, Nikolai Gerasimov from Russia, well, a lot of people don't even know who he is, but this is a guy that performs 7 clubs, a long run of 7 clubs, an 8 club flash, 11 ring flash with no holsters or anything like that, 10 rings with a pole balance, 9 rings with a ball bounce, all these amazing things in a really weird style.
Is he the one who holds his arms like outwards, like kind of more of a T?
Outward, yeah. For even numbers, he holds his arms straight outward. For odd numbers, it's almost like a flat front.
And is there a link to him maybe on your site, or could you spell that name for us? Gerasimov?
Gerasimov. Gerasimov.
Yeah, he's definitely worth seeing because his style of holding his arms is quite unusual and very visually really appealing, I think.
It is. He doesn't have much stage presence, which is a shame. But what he does is very odd and very, very high technical level. When I first got a video of him, which is long before anything was online of him, I was talking to Anthony Gatto, and I said, "Have you heard of him?" And he said, "No." I said, he said, "Maybe I've heard his name." I said, "Let me send you a video of him." And I did that, and Anthony called me back and he said, "This guy has no idea how hard the things he's doing are.
Yeah, he's otherworldly.
Yes.
Let's give a quick shout out to Gatto, who just retired from his career.
That would appear to be the case. We've had no official word from him, but all indications are that is the case.
Well, a big shout out to Anthony for an amazing career. Now, let's say if people want to see your display, it's going to be at the next IJA Festival?
Yes, I'll have the whole display there in the History Lounge. Last year I did it with Paul Bachman, who is kind of my juggling collecting mentor. But this year I'm doing it all by myself. Paul is expected to be there to kind of host the lounge with me, but it's going to be my stuff there. Paul was very gracious and has gave me quite a bit of his stuff in the past year. He does still have some amazing things that maybe one day he would bless me with. He has.
I know he's talked about giving his collection to some worthy successor, and I can't think of a person more worthy than you at this moment, David Cain. So,
well, we'll see.
When I talk to Paul, I'll put him a good word because me and Paul are good friends. So I'll put that bug in his ear for you.
But Paul has the Alexander Kiss Bouncing Club, and he does have some Rastelli props.
Someday those will be mine.
No, I don't presume that at all.
I know.
But Paul is a true inspiration for someone who has devoted a large majority of his life to the juggling art and to collecting and preserving history. And that's really what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to preserve history, the history of our art, through its props and especially through its props, but also through pictures and video and things of that
We are
sort.
really to commend it. It's a worthy pursuit, and unfortunately I will not be seeing you at the convention. I'll be working in South Korea. But it's great to see you over the Skype, and thanks so much for being the very first guest on the Drop Everything podcast for the IJA. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Well, I appreciate it. Hopefully I haven't looked too weird. I've been staring at a cartoon of your face for an hour and 12 minutes.
Well, next time I'll have a video. I haven't quite set up the video camera. My lovely wife,
No
Karen Holzman, is doing all my engineering, and I'm hoping this is going to be this month of May. We'll have one. We'll probably break this up into several parts because we went quite long.
Okay.
But hopefully from now on we'll have 2 podcasts a month with different jugglers, different subjects. But thank you so much for talking about the history of juggling, and thank you so much for preserving these wonderful props. And I give you big credit. Wish I could see you at the IGA, but of course we'll keep talking over the phone like we do. Thanks again to David Cain.
Absolutely. Thank you.
That wraps up the first podcast of Drop Everything. I'm your host, Dan Holzman. Thanks again to the International Juggling Association for hosting this podcast. And a special thanks to Scott Seltzer, publisher of eJuggle magazine, for offering me this opportunity. Thanks, of course, to our sponsor, Todd Smith. Check out toddsmith.com, where you can find The Assassin, the club with deadly accuracy. Don't forget to mention the podcast for your 10% discount. And thanks again to our first guest, David Cain. Enjoy yourselves, juggle responsibly, and drop everything except when you're juggling.